Time doesn't move the way we think it does. It loops, twists, folds in on itself. Some say the past is fixed. Others say it's still being written. But tonight we're going to explore the paradoxes that break all of it. This isn't just a story. It's a slow unraveling of everything you believe about cause, effect, memory, and choice. And while you listen, you might start to feel it, like your thoughts are slipping out of sync with the clock on the wall. Before we begin, tell me, where in the world are you right now? And what time is it for you as you're watching this? Drop it in the comments below. I want to see who else is drifting through the timeline with us tonight. Imagine stepping into a time machine. The air hums around you, circuits warm to your touch. You punch in a year, long before you were born, and in a blink you're there. Now picture this. You find your grandfather before he meets your grandmother. For whatever reason you intervene. Maybe it's by accident. Maybe it's on purpose. But the result is the same, they never meet. Your parent is never born. And so, neither are you. That's the paradox. If you were never born, how did you go back in time in the first place? How did you stop the meeting that would have created you? But if you didn't exist, you couldn't have traveled back. And if you didn't travel back, your grandparents did meet, and you were born. Which means you could go back and stop them. Which means you were never born. And again. And again. It's a logic loop that eats itself. This is the grandfather paradox, one of the oldest and most haunting thought experiments in the time travel canon. It's not just about family or causality. It's about the impossibility of clean edits in the timeline. Time as we understand it doesn't like contradiction. And yet, this paradox creates one that's impossible to resolve. Some theories attempt to patch the hole. One says time would self-correct, your interference would fail, or some other event would step in to keep history intact. Others say you'd split the timeline, creating a new version of reality where you were never born, while the original one, the one you came from, remains untouched. But that creates a different question. Where are you now? Do you belong to a past that no longer exists? The grandfather paradox isn't just about breaking the past. It's about unraveling the very concept of identity, of existence, of cause and effect. And it's only the beginning. Imagine discovering a book, dusty, yellowed, its pages filled with complex diagrams and instructions. It tells you exactly how to build a time machine. You don't know who wrote it. There's no author, no publishing date. Just pure information. You follow it piece by piece until you build the impossible. The machine works. And once you have it, you go back in time and, on a whim, you leave the book for your past self to find. So who wrote the book? You didn't. You found it. But your future self only had it because your past self left it. The book has no origin. No creator. It exists because it exists. This is the Bootstrap Paradox, and it's one of the strangest logical knots in time travel. Named after the expression pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps, doing something impossible, the Bootstrap Paradox involves something that seems to come from nowhere. A person, an object, an idea looping endlessly through time with no point of creation. It violates what we understand about causality, about how things begin and end. Now expand the idea. What if you heard a song on the radio, traveled back, taught it to a young musician, and that musician grew up to become the artist who recorded the song in the first place? Who composed it? Or what if you met your older self who gave you life advice only for you to become that older self later, and pass the advice down again? Where did the wisdom originate? It's a clean loop. A perfect circle. And that's the problem. The Bootstrap Paradox creates a reality where the origin of information, matter, or identity is missing. Gone. It's like a bridge with no pillars, just floating in space, connected only to itself. Some physicists argue that quantum mechanics could allow such loops to exist. Others say the universe would somehow reject them. But what if it didn't? What if pieces of our reality are already caught in bootstrap loops? Ideas that came from nowhere. Events that were never caused. What if some part of you, some memory, some instinct, didn't begin inside you at all? And if time can create something out of nothing, how much of what you believe is real might be a perfect copy of a copy, endlessly echoing backward? You open your eyes, and something feels off. The room looks the same. Your hands, your voice, your body, they're all familiar. But your thoughts are too sharp, too aged. You know things you shouldn't. You remember conversations that haven't happened yet. Mistakes you haven't made. Regrets you haven't earned. You've jumped. Not physically but consciously. Your mind, your awareness has traveled back in time and landed in your younger self. This is the consciousness jump. A paradox that suggests your awareness can move through time even if your body doesn't. You haven't changed the world around you, but you've changed the you that's experiencing it. And now nothing feels quite right. Every instinct is years ahead. You dodge arguments before they start. You change what you say, how you move, who you trust. You stop things before they ever happen. But slowly you realize something terrifying. By making new choices, you're diverging from the memories that brought you here. And as that gap widens, the future you came from begins to dissolve. You no longer remember what was supposed to happen next. You're improvising now. Every decision unravels more of the future you once knew. Until the version of you that jumped, the one from that other timeline, is gone entirely. Replaced by this new version here and now. So what happens to the you that jumped? Are you still them? Or have you become something else entirely? Some theories suggest that consciousness itself could be untethered from time. That awareness is not bound to the linear path our bodies follow. That in dreams, déjà vu, or sudden intuition, we're feeling the ripples of other versions of ourselves. Ones that lived different lives. That chose different things. If that's true, then maybe you've already jumped. And you just don't remember who you were before. You wake up one day and something's wrong. You can't quite place it. Everything looks the same. The streets, the people, the skyline outside your window. But something's missing. A building that should be there isn't. A friend's name suddenly feels unfamiliar. A detail in your own past doesn't add up. You brush it off. But it lingers. This is the timeline cannibal effect. A chilling paradox where one version of reality begins to consume another. The idea is simple but devastating. If timelines can split, because of choices, changes, or time travel, then they might not just run parallel. They might compete. One timeline becomes stronger, more stable. The other weakens, begins to fade. Pieces of it get overwritten. Lives get reshuffled. And the weaker version, slowly devoured by the stronger one. But here's where it gets terrifying. What if you're from the fading version? You remember things no one else does. A detail, a moment, a person, gone. And everyone else insists it never existed. You start to feel like you're losing your mind. But what if it's not memory loss? What if it's a glitch caused by your consciousness holding on to a collapsing version of time? Some theories suggest that certain people, by accident or anomaly, retain fragments from overwritten timelines. A trace of what used to be. A ghost of another possibility. You feel out of sync not because something changed around you, but because you're the leftover piece from a timeline that no longer exists. And the more stable this new version becomes, the less room there is for you. You're not crazy. You're just from somewhere else. Somewhere that got erased. And this timeline isn't yours. You travel back in time to stop something terrible. A war, a death, a mistake that shattered everything. You act. You change the course of events. The moment is saved. The disaster never happens. But as you breathe a sigh of relief, you feel it. A tug like gravity from another direction. Because now, you don't have a reason to come back. This is the time traveler's dilemma. If your mission succeeded, the future you came from doesn't exist anymore. And if that future doesn't exist, then you were never sent. But if you were never sent, then the past wasn't changed. Which means the event happened, which means you were sent. And so the loop begins. A contradiction that spirals in on itself. One you can't think your way out of. It's the tragedy of the self-erasing savior. You're stuck in a timeline that shouldn't include you. A version of reality where your presence breaks the logic of cause and effect. You fixed it, yes, but now you are the error. A piece of data that doesn't belong in the new file. A shadow from a version of the world that no longer has a reason to remember you. Some say the universe would collapse such loops immediately. Others suggest it would split, branching off a timeline just for you, an orphan strand severed from the version you came to save. Either way, you don't go home. You can't. Because the home you left doesn't exist anymore. And the most haunting thought of all? Maybe the moment you fixed it, you never existed in the first place. You've changed something. You're not sure when it happened, maybe a day ago, maybe decades back. You said something different, turned left instead of right, saved someone you weren't supposed to. And now, things are unraveling. Not all at once. Slowly. Quietly. Familiar details slip through your fingers. Names you once knew feel wrong. Places feel slightly out of order. You remember too much and not enough. This is the rewriting paradox. It begins with a single decision. One ripple in the timeline. But time doesn't rewrite like a clean slate. It overwrites. Layer by layer. And if you've changed enough, the old layers start to bleed through. You don't just alter the present. You begin to alter your memories of the present. And eventually, you forget what the original version even looked like. You lose the thread. You remember being someone else, but also being you. You remember a version of events that never happened, and yet you know exactly how they felt. Your mind becomes a patchwork, half rewritten, half resisting. You're living in a story that doesn't remember being edited, but you do. You wonder, if you keep changing the timeline, how many versions of yourself have existed? How many realities have been written over and lost? How many times have you done this before? And the worst part is, you don't know if the current version is better. Because how would you even compare it to what came before? If you've already forgotten what came before, reality doesn't change all at once. It rewrites itself. While you're still inside the paragraph. You step off the time machine and look around. The sky's the same color. The streets have familiar cracks. Your house is still where you left it. But when you knock on the door, no one knows your name. There are no photos of you on the wall. No records. No trace. It's as if you were never born. This is the forgotten traveler paradox. You changed something, maybe something small. Maybe something huge. But whatever it was, it rewired the timeline so thoroughly that you were never part of it. You still exist somehow, standing here breathing, but in this version of reality you were never supposed to. It's not just that people don't remember you. It's that the world can't. Official records don't match your fingerprints. The friends you once laughed with never met you. Even the language around you feels slightly off. Your presence is a leftover glitch from a version of time that was overwritten, like a deleted file that didn't quite erase. Some theories say time is like a web. Tug on one thread and it shifts everything. Others say you're now living in a branch reality, one that split off the moment you made that change. A world that looks like home but isn't. A place where you exist physically but not narratively. You're a character with no backstory. A body with no past. The paradox leaves you with a question heavier than time travel itself. If no one remembers you, if no version of the world includes you, do you still matter? Or are you just a remnant? The last echo of a story that was erased? You see flashes, scenes from a life you haven't lived yet. A conversation you swear you've already had, though the words have never left your mouth. A memory of something that hasn't happened. Not yet. Maybe not ever. This is the phantom future. You go through your day, but pieces of the future keep slipping in. Dreams that feel too real, instincts that come from nowhere, certainty about things you shouldn't know. It's more than déjà vu. It's as if your brain is buffering something that hasn't loaded yet. Like reality is catching up to a version of you that's already lived it. Some believe this is just intuition. A trick of the mind. But what if it's something more? What if your consciousness is tethered not just to the present but to multiple versions of time? Some slightly ahead, some slightly behind. And what you're feeling isn't coincidence, it's bleed through. Maybe in another timeline these things have already happened. You've already made those decisions. You've already suffered those losses, already found that love, already said those words. And now, like a ghost echoing through the walls of time, the future you lived elsewhere is trying to get back to you. Or maybe you were supposed to follow a different path. And the phantom future is a glitch, a reminder of the life you missed. A life that still exists but not in this version of the world. The paradox is this: if you remember something that hasn't happened, is it a warning or a promise? And when the moment finally arrives, will you change it or follow it because you feel like you already have? You make a choice, small, maybe meaningless. You reach for coffee instead of tea. You say yes instead of no. You turn left instead of right. And in that instant the universe splits. One version of you walks down this path. Another takes the other. And another. And another. Every choice, no matter how trivial, fracturing reality into infinite timelines. This is quantum time hopping. It suggests that you're not just living in one reality, you're sliding between them. Every version of you shaped by different decisions is out there right now. Some are nearly identical. Others are unrecognizable. And sometimes, without warning, you drift into one that's not quite your own. You feel it in the smallest ways. A song lyric that's suddenly different. A memory that doesn't match your photo. A street that curves the wrong way. People you know acting slightly off. These aren't just quirks of perception. They might be signs that you've slipped into a nearby timeline. One where everything is mostly the same, except you. The more jumps you make, the harder it becomes to tell what's real. You start to forget which version of your life is yours. Were you always this person? Did you always feel this way? Or are those the memories of someone almost you? You didn't build a time machine. You didn't mean to travel. But reality is porous. And you might not be in the timeline you started in. You're not the only one traveling through time anymore. At first it was just you, a singular ripple in a still pond. But something's shifted. Now the timeline feels crowded. You start noticing irregularities, conversations repeating with slightly different words, people recognizing you when you've never met, events unfolding before you expect them. It's subtle at first. Then it starts to fracture. This is Chrono Saturation, the point where the timeline becomes oversaturated with time travelers, each rewriting events, layering contradictions over contradictions until reality begins to bend under the pressure. You see the signs everywhere. Cause doesn't lead to effect. You avoid a moment that somehow still happens. History mutates in real time, facts flicker, stories rewrite themselves mid-sentence. Like a corrupted file trying to stay coherent. And you're not alone in sensing it. Every traveler, each with their own mission, regrets, revisions, adds to the instability. The timeline tries to adapt, to reconcile all the changes, but it's too much. Think of it like over-editing a photograph. Eventually the image breaks down, turns to noise. The structure of time isn't infinite. Can only bend so far before it folds in on itself. Some say Chrono Saturation leads to timeline collapse. Others say the timeline chooses one version to stabilize, erasing the others and everyone in them. And some believe we've already hit saturation. That every glitch you've felt, every impossible coincidence, every moment of déjà vu, that's not your mind playing tricks. That's the timeline cracking. The paradox is terrifyingly simple. What happens when too many people try to fix time at once? And what if someone somewhere is trying to fix you out of it? You walk into a room and freeze. Something feels thin. Like reality is stretched too tightly over something underneath. You catch a word that feels wrong. Someone looks at you a second too long, like they almost recognize you. And then you realize, You've been here before. But not in this timeline. This is the parallel bleed effect. A paradox where alternate realities begin to leak into each other. According to some interpretations of quantum mechanics, every decision, every branch of possibility, creates its own universe. Infinite timelines, each unfolding with slight variations. But what if they aren't perfectly sealed? What if the walls between them sometimes tear just a little? Just enough for something to slip through. A memory. A face. A feeling that doesn't belong to you, yet fits too well. You might recall a childhood event no one else remembers, or a detail about someone's life that they swear never happened. Maybe you wake up with the weight of grief for a loss that never occurred in this version of the world. You're not crazy. You're not dreaming. You're experiencing echoes from a timeline that's close, but not quite yours. Some say these bleed-throughs are caused by emotional intensity, déjà vu, or even dreams. Others think time travelers breaking through their own timelines can ripple outward, destabilizing the nearby strands. And maybe, just maybe, you are the one doing it without even knowing. You're not alone in this world. You're not even alone in your own story. You're sharing space with fragments of other versions of you. Other lives, other past, quietly pushing through the cracks. You wake from a dream that felt too vivid, too detailed. You remember names you've never heard before, places you've never been, conversations that unfolded like memories, not fantasies. And for a brief moment, as your eyes adjust to the dark, you feel like you've arrived, not awakened. This is the sleep traveler theory. It suggests your dreams aren't imagination at all, but echoes of other timelines your consciousness visits while your body rests. Not metaphor, not symbolism, actual versions of reality. Ones where different choices were made, different lives lived, different versions of you still breathing. Every night, your awareness slips through the cracks in the timeline. A soft reboot. You don't just dream, you transfer. And sometimes, the things you feel there follow you home. A sudden sense of grief for something you've never lost, a lingering emotion that doesn't fit your current life, a feeling of familiarity with a person you just met. You start to wonder, is sleep the body's way of resting, or the mind's way of traveling? Some people claim to have lived entire lives in their sleep, relationships, careers, deaths, only to wake up gasping, grieving, or in love with a stranger who doesn't exist here. Others have woken with knowledge they couldn't explain, insights into themselves, or warnings. But if your consciousness travels nightly, how do you know this reality is the original one? How do you know this morning isn't just another stop? In a long chain of timelines your sleeping mind keeps stitching together? Maybe tonight, you won't be dreaming at all. Maybe you'll just be somewhere else. You travel back to change the past. Maybe to stop a tragedy. Maybe to save someone. Maybe to undo your greatest mistake. You do everything right. You pull the right string. You alter the moment. And when it's done, you realize something horrible. What you just did is what caused it in the first place. This is the Predestination Paradox, where trying to change fate is the very thing that fulfills it. It's a time loop disguised as free will. You thought you had a choice. You thought you could alter the path. But the second you interfered, you became part of the story. You didn't prevent the event. You became the reason it happened. The past doesn't break. It absorbs you. Imagine trying to stop a fire and knocking over the first candle. Imagine trying to save someone from an accident, only to be the distraction that causes it. Every step forward in your mission becomes a step deeper into the outcome you were trying to avoid. It's not just frustrating. It's terrifying. Because it means there is no real way out. The moment you decide to go back, the loop begins. And no matter how many times you try to fix it, you're doing exactly what's required to keep it happening. Some call it fate. Others call it self-fulfilling prophecy. But in time travel, it's worse than either. Because you can remember the pain. You can see what's coming. And you'll still walk right into it, thinking you had a choice. You see yourself across the street. Same face. Same eyes. Same hesitation in your walk. For a second you lock eyes, and in that moment everything stops. Not out of fear. Out of recognition. Not the kind that comes from memory, but from mirroring. This is the observer timeline problem. A paradox that emerges when different versions of you begin to observe one another. Time travel stories often focus on action. Going back, changing something, saving someone. But what if the danger isn't in what you do? It's in what you see. In this paradox, the simple act of being aware of another version of yourself, watching them, being watched by them, fractures the very logic that keeps timelines separate. Because here's the problem. Which version of you is the real observer? If two versions of the same person observe each other, and both believe they're the one from the original timeline, then which one is wrong? Or worse, what if neither is wrong? What if the mere act of mutual observation collapses the separation between timelines, fusing two conflicting realities into one unstable mess? It's like staring into a mirror, and the mirror stares back with a memory that isn't yours. Some theories suggest that this kind of overlap would cause a cognitive glitch, a moment of pure confusion, where your brain tries to integrate memories, emotions, and experiences from two incompatible versions of yourself. Some people call it a panic attack. Others call it déjà vu. But what if it's neither? What if it's the moment when your timeline collides with the you who chose differently, and both of you realize you're not alone anymore? You step into a version of the world that looks like your own. The sky is the same. The people are familiar. Your name still echoes in conversations. But as the days pass, a creeping realization sets in. This isn't your world. Welcome to the universe-hopping self. A paradox that asks, what happens when you continue but your original reality does not? Somewhere along the timeline something broke. Maybe it was a time jump, a decision too bold, or a reality torn by accident. Whatever it was, your consciousness didn't stay tethered to the version of the universe it was born in. It slid sideways into a reality that runs nearly parallel but not quite. You remember things no one else does. People are one conversation behind where they should be. Someone you love doesn't recognize the look in your eyes. You swear a scar on your hand was never there before. At first you wonder if it's just stress. Then déjà vu. But it lingers. It accumulates. Until you can't deny it anymore. You're not supposed to be here. Not in this version. Not in this life. You are a traveler with no ticket back. A passenger in a universe that wasn't built for you. Some call it the Mandela effect. Others blame dream logic, memory drift, simulation glitches. But if consciousness can shift, if you can leap between worlds, then there may be countless versions of yourself, all slightly out of phase, all blinking in and out of alignment. And maybe, just maybe, you're not the only one who jumped. Maybe the version of you from this world is somewhere else right now, looking around and feeling just as lost. You're walking through life as usual, same city, same sky, same routine. But something is missing. Not from the world around you, but from the world ahead. There's an eerie silence in your gut, a blankness just past the horizon. You can't explain it, but deep down, you feel it. The future is gone. This is the vanishing future effect. A paradox where the timeline you're headed toward has already collapsed. Not in a dramatic explosion. Not with fire or noise. But silently, invisibly, like a road that disappears just beyond the fog. The effect creeps in gradually. You lose a sense of purpose, but not in a philosophical way, in a structural one. Events begin to feel less connected. Plans fall apart before they begin. People act without direction, conversations end mid-thought, decisions get harder to make. You're living in a timeline with no endpoint. A version of reality that wasn't supposed to continue this far. And the terrifying part? You might be the reason. Maybe you changed something, barely enough to notice but enough to divert the outcome. Maybe you prevented a catastrophe or stopped a choice that once led to something critical. Whatever it was, that fork in the road cut the future off from this version of the present. It's not that the future doesn't exist. It's that your place in it no longer does. Some theorists suggest this version of time is in limbo. A soft collapse. Still running but without momentum. Like a train coasting on dead tracks. There's no more next. No final chapter. Just an endless now. And if the timeline you're on no longer leads anywhere, what happens when you finally reach a moment that isn't written? You go back in time, change something critical, and return to the present expecting everything to be better. But when you arrive, there's nothing. No people. No movement. No sound. The world exists, but it feels hollow. As if the engine of time itself stalled somewhere in your absence. This is the self-terminating timeline. A paradox where a change in the past doesn't just alter the future. It quietly kills it. You may have saved someone. Or destroyed something. Maybe you thought you were preventing a mistake. But what you actually did was remove the very condition that made your timeline viable. The butterfly effect didn't create a better version of reality. It unplugged it. Time continued technically but without purpose. Like a clock still ticking long after everyone's left the room. Some theories suggest certain timelines are fragile. Held together by key events, specific people, or even emotional momentum. Remove one piece and it doesn't collapse with a bang. It just expires. Others believe that when a paradox reaches critical mass, when too many contradictions stack on top of each other, the timeline doesn't know what to do. It doesn't explode. It simply gives up. You're not in danger. But you're also not home. You're walking through a world that's functionally over. A reality that should have never continued. You're the only thread still connected to something that no longer exists. And the question you're left with is this. Was the change you made worth it? Or did you break a universe just to fix a moment? You stand in front of history's darkest figure. You know what he'll do, what horrors he'll unleash. And somehow, impossibly, you have the power to stop it. Maybe a warning. Maybe a push. Maybe a bullet. You act. The timeline bends. This is the Hitler paradox. The most debated, most dangerous thought experiment in time travel. The idea is simple. If you could go back in time and kill Adolf Hitler before he rose to power, would you do it? Could you save millions of lives? Could you stop a world war? Could you rewrite one of the most brutal chapters of history? But here's the problem. Time doesn't exist in a vacuum. Remove one figure and the ripples spread in unpredictable ways. Someone else rises to power. A different ideology takes hold. The war happens anyway, just sooner or later or with different weapons. Maybe it's worse. Maybe the absence of a singular villain makes the horror harder to name, harder to fight. Or maybe your attempt fails entirely. Maybe you become the reason he turns darker. Maybe your intervention hardens him, fuels his propaganda, gives him exactly what he needs to ascend. In trying to stop evil, you may become the spark that ignites it. And then there's the other version. You succeed. You stop him. And when you return to your own time, no one remembers him. Not because he never existed, but because the world without him became something else. Something unrecognizable. And in that version you are no longer the hero. You are the anomaly. The paradox is this. If you go back to prevent suffering, but create new suffering in the process, did you actually save anything? Or did you just rewrite the horror? With a different name? You and your twin are born on the same day at the same time. You grow up together. Identical DNA. Identical everything. Until one day one of you boards a spaceship. This is the twin paradox. A real, measurable effect predicted by Einstein's theory of special relativity. It's not science fiction. It's physics. And it breaks everything you think you know about time. While one twin remains on Earth, the other travels at near light speed. Days pass on the ship. maybe a year. But when they return to Earth, everything has changed. The twin who stayed has aged decades. The traveler barely at all. They left as your twin. But now they're younger than you. They remember you as a child. You remember them as someone who disappeared. This isn't magic. It's time dilation. At high velocities, time itself slows down relative to observers moving at different speeds. To the traveling twin, only a short time has passed. But to everyone else, years. So now the paradox. Which one of you is the real you? The one who lived through all those years? Or the one who skipped over them like flipping pages in a book? You're no longer in sync. Not biologically. Not psychologically. Not emotionally. You shared a timeline once. But now one of you has jumped ahead while the other has been left behind. And if time can move differently for two people who started at the same place, what does that say about time itself? Maybe it's not fixed. Maybe it's not equal. Maybe it never was. You've changed everything. You've jumped timelines, corrected mistakes, erased pain, rewritten moments that once defined you. You've looped, observed, reversed, and reappeared. And now, there's nowhere left to go. This is the final timeline, the version where all roads end. It doesn't feel dramatic. There's no flash of light or echoing boom. It feels quiet. So, like the universe is holding its breath. You start to notice things slowing down, not just around you but in you. Decisions feel heavier. Events unfold with eerie precision, as if reality has already decided what's going to happen, and is just waiting for you to catch up. There are no more branches. No more second chances. Every loop, every correction, every paradox you've passed through has led here, to the thread that doesn't unravel, the one reality that won't split again. This isn't a failure. It's not even a punishment. It's a conclusion. A closing chapter written by every version of you that tried to rewrite the ending. Every past self that meddled. Every future self that paid the price. The final timeline is where time no longer bends to you. It stands up straight, looks you in the eye, and says, "This is it." And maybe that's okay. Maybe the answer was never in fixing the past or escaping the future, but in understanding that every twist, every echo, was leading you to this one unchangeable moment. Right now. Here. At the end. You make a decision right now. But what if the universe hasn't caught up to it yet? This is the delayed choice paradox, a mind-warping idea rooted in quantum physics. It challenges everything we think we know about time, causality, and the very fabric of reality. Imagine a particle moving through space. It reaches a fork, two possible paths. But here's the twist. You don't decide how to measure it until after it has already passed the fork. Depending on your choice in the present, the particle behaves as if it had always taken one path, or both. Your current action reaches backward in time and rewrites what just happened. It's not metaphor. It's been tested. Over and over again. The experiment shows that particles don't commit to a history until you decide how to observe them. It's as if time itself waits, holding its breath, until you make a choice, and only then does it fill in the blanks behind you. So what does that mean for your own life? What if the consequences of your decisions aren't just shaping your future, but also reshaping your past? What if some moments in your memory aren't fixed but fluid depending on where you are now? What if your regrets are just collapsed versions of paths that hadn't fully formed yet? Some physicists suggest that the universe doesn't move in one direction. It's more like a conversation between past and future, where neither is truly locked until both sides agree. So when you look back and wonder why things happened the way they did, consider this. Maybe they're still happening, and maybe you're still deciding. You've changed one thing, just one. A small fix, an innocent shift in the past. But it doesn't stop there. That one correction leads to another, and then another, and another. Each change demands another to keep the story coherent, to make the timeline make sense again. You've triggered the undo chain paradox. At first, it feels like control, like power. You fixed something. You saw the effects ripple outward. It worked. But then something unexpected happens. A consequence you didn't plan for. So you go back again. Adjust it. And that creates 2 more ripples. So you go back again. And again. Until you're not sure what you were trying to fix in the first place. This paradox is the subtle trap of time travel. Every action is a thread tied to dozens more. Pull on one and the whole fabric shifts. You try to smooth it out, but it wrinkles somewhere else. You press that down and something else creases. No matter what you do, you're always one move behind the chaos. Eventually, the timeline doesn't resemble the one you came from at all. And here's the haunting part. Each time you undo something, you lose the emotional memory of why you did it. The original pain, the original motivation, that's gone. You're acting on instinct now. Habit. A compulsion to perfect something that may never have been broken. You're not just editing time anymore. You're erasing yourself, piece by piece, from your own story. And maybe the only thing left to undo is the first change you ever made. You've made it to a timeline where everything is perfect. The war never happened. The people you love are alive. The sky looks a little clearer, the streets a little quieter, and your chest feels lighter than it has in years. But there's a problem. You can't go back. This is the Multiverse Isolation Paradox. The moment you realize you're trapped in the version of reality you weren't meant to find. Time travel, if it were possible, wouldn't just move you through time. It would move you across realities. Every change spawns a new branch, a new universe. And sometimes, whether by accident or design, you land in one that feels right. Too right. Everything fits. Everything works. Except you. You're not from here. You weren't shaped by this timeline's version of the past. You didn't earn this peace. You didn't live through the same losses, make the same sacrifices. The people around you look at you with love, but they're looking at their version of you. The one you replaced. The one who belonged. And you, well, you remember something else. A different world. A worse one. Some theorists argue that each branch of the multiverse is sealed once created. No return trips. No backtracking. No switching timelines like train stops. The moment you arrive, you're severed from everything before. Your old reality continues without you, oblivious to your absence. You're safe here. But you're alone. And the worst part? You can't even tell anyone what you lost. Because to them, this was always your home. You look at the world around you and wonder, would any of this exist if no one was here to see it? In quantum physics, there's a strange idea. Particles exist in a state of possibility. A blur of positions, paths, and energies, until they're observed. And only then do they choose a state. Until that moment, they're undefined. A coin that's both heads and tails at the same time. Schrödinger's cat, alive and dead. Light, both a wave and a particle. Now scale that up. Not just particles but events. Time itself. Moments that may or may not have happened, until someone sees them. This is the observer collapse paradox. What if reality isn't fully real until you observe it? What if time doesn't move forward unless someone's watching? Sounds like science fiction, but it's baked into quantum theory. The act of observation doesn't just reveal the world, it shapes it. Without a witness, the universe remains a question mark. A cloud of probability. So what happens to the moments no one sees? A word whispered in an empty room. A star exploding in a galaxy no eye will ever reach. A memory from a version of you that never survived. Did they ever really exist? Or are they just possibilities that collapsed into nothing because no one was there to catch them? And what does that make you, the observer? Maybe you're not just watching the universe unfold. Maybe your awareness is the thing that collapses it into reality. Frame by frame. Moment by moment. Maybe time needs you more than you need it. A man receives a mysterious note slipped under his door. It's unsigned. Just a time, a date, and a warning. Leave now. He listens. He runs. Minutes later, the building explodes behind him. His life is saved. Years pass. The mystery haunts him. Eventually, he invents a way to send information back through time. And one day, finally, he sends the note back to his past self. This is the looping cause paradox. A mind-breaking scenario where the effect causes the cause and the loop has no beginning. There was never a moment where the idea was created or the note was originally written. It exists, cycling endlessly between future and past. The man survives because he received the note. And he sends the note because he survived. But who wrote it first? There's no origin. No initial spark. Just a feedback loop suspended in time. The paradox doesn't stop with messages. Imagine a woman inspired by a famous quote she reads in an old book. She builds her life around it. Decades later, she writes a book and includes the same quote. A reader in the future finds it, passes it back in time, and it ends up in the book she read as a child. Who wrote the quote? The looping cause paradox challenges everything we believe about beginnings. We expect time to flow like a river, source to sea. But here time flows like a circle. No start, no end, just infinite self-reference. And if things can exist without ever being created, how much of what you know, what you believe, was born from a loop, not a line? You can see the future, not in flashes or symbols or dreams, but clearly, as if peering through a glass wall. You watch events unfold days, weeks, even years before they happen. Conversations, accidents, triumphs, losses. They arrive exactly as you saw them. Every time. But no matter what you do, you can't stop them. This is the one-way window. A paradox where time opens itself up to be seen, but not touched. You're trapped behind the glass. You can scream, knock, plead, but nothing you do alters what's coming. You try to speak a warning and your voice fails. You reach out to change a moment and the moment continues, untouched. Somewhere deep inside you realize the terrible truth. This isn't prophecy. It's programming. What you see is fixed, immutable. Like watching a film you've seen 100 times, knowing the ending, unable to rewrite a single scene. And the more you see, the heavier it becomes. You begin to dread the future. Not because it's unknown, but because it's known too well. You feel every heartbreak before it arrives. Every goodbye echoes in your chest days before the words are spoken. And you can't change any of it. Some say this is what fate looks like. Not a force, not a god, but a pane of glass. Perfect clarity. Zero control. And the longer you stare into it, the more you start to wonder. Which side of the glass are you really on? And who or what is doing the watching? Imagine walking forward, only to find yourself right back where you started. Not just in space but in time. You do something, say something, and then see it echo forward, becoming the very reason you started in the first place. This is the closed time-like curve, a theoretical path through spacetime that loops back on itself. It means you could travel along a trajectory and arrive not just somewhere but somewhen, and then keep going until you end up exactly where and when you began. In this kind of loop, events aren't just linked, they're entangled. What happens now causes what happened before. And what happened before causes what's happening now. It's not time travel in the way we imagine it. It's time with no exit. A perfect ring of cause and effect, looping endlessly with no first cause and no final result. Let's say you receive a strange phone call one night, your own voice warning you not to go outside. You listen. You stay in. You're safe. Years later, after building a time communication device, you send that message back. You complete the loop. But wait, who made the choice first? Who spoke first? When did it begin? The closed time-like curve raises a disturbing possibility. Maybe some things in your life were never started. They've always been. Caught in a causal circle that defies logic, memory, and time. And if certain actions are part of a loop, Does that mean you never really had a choice at all? Or worse, maybe you already made the choice, and now you're just living the consequences again. You reach into the past, not with a machine or a portal, but with a simple action. A message. A warning. A small, calculated change. You think it's enough. You think you've done it. But when you return, something is wrong. Not broken. Not chaotic. Just off. This is the memory erasure paradox, where your change in the past succeeds, but in doing so, it erases your reason for making the change at all. You stopped the tragedy. You prevented the mistake. You undid the loss. And in the process, the version of yourself who carried the memory, the pain, the lesson, disappears. Not physically, but internally. The experience that defined you no longer happened. And if it didn't happen, then why would you have ever gone back? It's a loop with a missing center. A circle that cancels itself out. And you're standing in the aftermath, feeling echoes of something you can't name. You look around and things feel calm, peaceful, even right. But there's an unease beneath it all. A kind of emotional phantom pain. You know something's missing. You just don't know what. You remember acting. You remember deciding. But the why is gone. The urgency, the emotion, the weight, all vanished with the version of events you erased. Some theories say the universe keeps a backup copy. That somewhere, buried deep in your subconscious, is a memory of the timeline that no longer exists. Others believe the erasure is perfect. That every time you fix something, you become a new person. One who never needed to fix anything at all. So ask yourself, if the memory of what you changed is gone, was the change ever really yours? You found it, the shortcut. A bridge through space and time. A wormhole. It opens like a secret doorway in the fabric of the universe, connecting two distant points instantly. Enter one side in the present, emerge from the other in the past. It sounds perfect, efficient, clean. Until you realize, the shortcut doesn't just save time, it breaks it. This is the paradox of wormhole contradictions, where the existence of a stable time tunnel unravels causality itself. Imagine this. You pass a message through a wormhole to your past self. A warning. Don't open the door. Your past self listens. Doesn't open it. Nothing happens. So you never had a reason to send the message. But without the message, your past self does open the door. Something awful happens. So now you do send the message. Contradiction. Collapse. Wormholes, if they exist, don't just allow time travel. They allow retroactive change. And if anything can alter its own cause, then cause and effect become meaningless. You could prevent your own journey through the wormhole, undoing your own departure. Or meet yourself, pass along crucial knowledge, and never have to discover it for the first time. The deeper you go, the messier it gets. Some physicists believe the universe would prevent such contradictions. That wormholes would destabilize, collapse, or rip apart before a paradox could occur. Others suggest timelines would split, spawning alternate realities to absorb the contradiction. But what if they don't? What if the universe lets it happen? And what if something, or someone, has already used one? Changed something, left something, but from somewhere else entirely. Time as we know it marches in one direction, forward. Entropy increases, systems decay, order gives way to chaos. It's how we measure life, aging, motion. But what if it didn't? What if time flowed backward? This is the paradox of reverse entropy loops, where entire regions of spacetime run in reverse. Events unhappen. Broken things unbreak. Smoke gathers back into the cigarette. A life is lived backward, ending in infancy, beginning with death. The laws of thermodynamics say that entropy, the tendency for systems to move from order to disorder, always increases. It's the arrow of time. But at the quantum level, the rules aren't so strict. Some processes, even entire equations, are time-symmetric. They work the same forward and backward. Meaning, in theory, there could be places or even entire timelines where entropy decreases, where time effectively flows the other way. So what would it feel like to live in reverse? You wouldn't remember yesterday. You'd remember tomorrow. Conversations would end before they begin. You'd weep first, then understand why. You'd fall in love and then forget who they are. Every action would feel like an undoing. Every breath, a rewind. You might think this would bring balance, a cosmic symmetry, but it wouldn't. It would be alien, incomprehensible, because your consciousness is shaped by forward time processing. You are the arrow, and in a world where time folds back on itself, you wouldn't just be lost, you might cease to exist altogether. The paradox isn't just about reversing time. It's about questioning whether the direction of time is real, or just a story we tell ourselves because it's the only one we know how to live. You build the machine. You perfect the coordinates. You calibrate the controls. And finally, you travel back to the one moment that's haunted you forever. Tragedy, mistake, something you'd give anything to change. But no matter what you do, it doesn't work. You shout, you interfere, you scream against the current of history, but the outcome repeats every time. Like reality is on rails and you're just a ghost trying to move the track. You're not early. You're not late. You're just powerless. This is the locked past paradox. The chilling possibility that some events are fixed in time. Not by logic, not by mechanics, but by something deeper. Something woven into the structure of the timeline itself. You change your angle. You take a different route. You act sooner or wait longer. But the moment doesn't budge. If anything, the more you struggle, the more inevitable it becomes. Almost like time is defending itself, snapping back like elastic whenever you try to stretch it. Some theories say the universe doesn't allow certain paradoxes, that the laws of physics subtly adjust the timeline to prevent inconsistencies. Others suggest that some events are convergent. No matter what leads to them, the outcome is always the same. And then there are those who believe, maybe it's not the past that's locked. Maybe you are. Maybe it's not that you can't change the moment, but that deep down part of you believes you're not supposed to. Believes you. You stare at the experiment. Nothing's happening. Particles behave like clouds, spread out, uncertain, undefined. But the moment you take a measurement, just one glance, everything snaps into place. The wave collapses. The particle picks a position. The universe chooses. This is the observer effect. The idea that reality itself may change simply because you looked at it. In quantum mechanics, it's not metaphor. It's math. Before being observed, particles exist in a superposition. A blur of probabilities. They're everywhere and nowhere at once. But once measured, they behave as if they were always in that one specific place all along. It's as if the act of looking forces the universe to decide. Now stretch that concept. Go beyond the particle. What if this doesn't stop at the microscopic level? What if it's not just photons and electrons that need a witness, but events, decisions, timelines? If you hadn't been there, would that thing still have happened? Or did your observation bring it into being? There's no definitive answer. Some interpretations, like the Copenhagen interpretation, accept it as quantum reality. What you observe is what becomes real. Others, like many worlds, argue that all outcomes exist. Your observation just locks you into one of them. But the effect remains. The unsettling implication that the universe isn't passively unfolding. It's responding. That nothing is truly real until something conscious collapses it into form. So ask yourself, what have you witnessed into reality today? And what parts of the universe are still waiting for you to look their way? You're standing in the present, but your thoughts aren't. You forget what day it is, not out of distraction but because it doesn't feel like today. You walk into a room and already know what's about to happen. You feel nostalgic for moments that haven't occurred yet. You grieve things that are still years away. Time isn't out of sync. You are. This is Chrono-Displacement Disorder, a theoretical condition where your consciousness slips through time independently of your body. Your physical form ages normally, but your awareness, your thoughts, memories, intuition, starts drifting. Backwards, forwards, sideways. It starts small. A flash of memory from a future you haven't lived. An instinct that saves you from something that hasn't happened yet. Then it deepens. You remember having a conversation before it starts. You forget things that haven't even occurred. You react emotionally to events that to everyone else are brand new, but to you they feel old. Done. You try to explain it, but no one understands. To them you're forgetting things. To you you're remembering them too early. And then comes the fear. What if you're slipping further? What if your consciousness ends up years ahead or behind while your body stays locked in the now? Would people say you've lost touch with reality? Or would you just be experiencing a different version of it? What's memory, after all, if not a form of time travel within your own mind? Maybe time isn't a line at all. Maybe it's a tide. And some of us were never built to stay anchored in one moment. Not forever. Not completely.